mysteries of the universe. So Candice, I give you permission because I'm going to take a dive here and I will lose track. I'll do my best to be 1 hour, but if it looks like it's not, then just give me 10 minutes at the end to pull myself back. I'm sure you all know what I'm going to do. I hope so, because I haven't got a clue and it's coming from you, right? So, look, I've been involved in martial arts for over 44 years and meditation for over 50, which seems just so weird in some ways. And I've never spoken about it, ever. This is the first time. Because Adriana asked me to. No one's ever asked me to. Most of my friends don't even know I do martial art. They don't know I'm a teacher of Aikido and Iaido. And it doesn't matter. But where am I coming from? Where are you coming from? At some point, by the way, it'd be nice if I could pin myself if someone could do that, because I have no idea whether the camera's even looking at me or not. And that would be useful if someone could do that. Where am I coming from? Not where am I going to? It's the wrong way if you want to solve the mysteries of the universe. So let me tell you why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. If you go and Google what are the 125 open questions in science today, then the top two, they publish it every year. Top two are, what's the universe made of? And what's the biological basis of consciousness? And you see, to me, if you ask the wrong questions, you'll get the wrong answers. Because here's the problem with those questions and why I'm going to say what I'm going to say. 70% of the universe is called mysterious dark matter. In other words, no idea whatsoever. It's the opposite of gravity because it has no effect there. It's mysterious because it's non-atomic. What do I mean by non-atomic? It does not interact or affect anything that we've ever been able to detect at all. So that's, by the way, 70% of you, isn't it? How do you get to know what you can't possibly know that you don't know? And you can't experience it because it's not part of your senses. So you can't see it. I can't tell you it because it's not in words. Because that is a vibration and that affects the atoms and that's detectable. They used to think there was a cosmological constant, but now we know with modern telescopes that everything's actually expanding faster than the speed of light. So everything's expanding super fast. 70% of what it's expanding into, we've absolutely no idea whatsoever. And quite probably never will, because we can't detect it at all. That leaves 80% of what's left, which we call dark matter, which we also can't detect at all in any way, shape or form. But we can detect the effect it has on the atoms. So that's 95% of absolutely everything remains completely undetected and is quite possibly undetectable. So that's 90% of us, right? Because you can't separate out. So the universe is basically made up of nothing. And that's a problem. So why does it actually appear as something? I mean, I appear to be something, right? I mean, I fit into a wheelbarrow, so according to Tad, I'm a thing. Or am I this holographic universe that we're in? Now, if I skip back, and feel free to come with me, 30, 40,000 years, before that, we didn't speak. We didn't do it. The only vibrations that we made back then were food, mating, danger, sounds. These are the original ancient sounds that we created. And we didn't create any others. And then for some inexplicable reason, we decide to actually create language. And so it starts to evolve. And then 5,000 years ago, again, inexplicably, we decide to start to write language and develop a written form. So when it was oral, what we had was stories became the way. Once there were stories, we're creating content. And according to Korzybski in Science and Sanity, the label is not the thing, right? So I can't label the thing because it's not a thing. I can't put in it a wheelbarrow. And behind all of it, there's a process which remains undetectable. So how can I somehow find my way back into the place from which it's all coming? For me, it's kind of a cosmic joke, right? There's a book just came to my mind called After the Laundry, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry, right, by Jack Cornfield. And it makes me laugh because, right, enlightenment, it's all good and fun, right? But there's still dirty socks on the floor. And they still need to go in the wash basket. Yeah, that stuff doesn't go away, right? And it's not like I've reached an endpoint reality of perpetual ecstasy and reality, because there's no such thing as reality anyway. So yeah, so it's all very fine and well, all this enlightenment lark, you know, but there's still stuff to do, you know. I still have to go and buy beans in the supermarket. Actually, I don't eat beans, but there you go. If I did, I'd have to go to the supermarket whilst being totally cosmologically amazing and somehow get my form to go and buy some of the universe to put inside me so that I continue to build this form as the universe wiggles through me and out the other side, you know? If you go back far enough, you were literally a tube, right? And then you developed a mouth and an anus, and then you started to get more complex and you could move towards the food and things like that. And in a million years from now, you won't look like this. This is not the end product. In fact, actually, in a million years, not a single one of us will be here, right? In form. So am I the form? How can I find my way back to where the form comes from? So for me, it was probably an accident to birth that I decided to meditate when I was around 5, influenced by what was around me at the time. And probably I wasn't really meditating, if I'm really honest now, and I look back to when I was 5, copying the shape that someone was in and sitting there. But daily practice, which I still have, got me to 12 or 13, by which point I was probably meditating. I don't know. But then I got introduced into martial arts and it changed me. Slowly, gradually, I started to learn things. And after all, this presentation is basically about ancient knowledge, right? And trance. I don't know if any of you are experiencing trance at the moment, and mystical processes. And by the way, I'm taking a leap into the void as I'm speaking and allowing it to come out of my mouth rather than a pre-planned thing on a piece of paper. So what am I doing when I'm doing my martial arts, right? Some of it is way out of what I could possibly give you inside and out, right? But I wanted to have a flavor of even that side of it. 44 years of Aikido. Can I do Aikido? I've no idea what Aikido is. None whatsoever. No idea. I could tell you bits about it, but the actual being, I mean, literally, it could mean harmonizing AI, part of Aikido. Ki is ki, energy, spirit. Do is the way. So the way of harmonizing with all things, way of harmonizing with all spirit. That could be one translation. Certainly nothing, I'm not talking about fighting, am I? And we practice in a dojo. So there's the word do again. So we're back to the way. And jo is representative of the staff. So all martial arts all around the world, there's always a stick, isn't there? So people use a stick, so it's a stick. But jo also means enlightenment. Dojo, the way of enlightenment. Dojo, the way of cleansing. Dojo, the way. And so we practice the way and then attempt to walk out the dojo with it. Do I get as far as the door? Do I get as far as the changing rooms? Do I get as far as like 3 foot outside the dojo today before I'm thinking about the price of fish? Or some other silly nonsense comes back. But slowly I get better. But I want to show you some Aikido, right? I did actually bring a little bit to share with you. So give me 1 second while I try and work out in this current state how to even look at a screen. Okay, so where's that I can share? Can't actually see it. Let me come back out of share and then maybe it's actually appeared this time. Give me a second. I'm in a hell of a state. Okay, so this, just to give you a heads up, this is what is like my teacher. This is a bit of my teacher who died a couple of years back. It's kind of sad. But I had 30 odd years with him, right? Or more. If you can move your body at the same time, at the same speed, at the same direction as your partner and breathe in harmony with the person at the same time, if you can pull all that together in one place, then what you do is you absorb all of the energy that's presented to you and there's nothing left. I get it right about once every 2 years and it's amazing. But my teacher just was completely incredible. So I just wanted you to have a moment to see what it would be like. I've slowed it down so you have a chance of actually seeing it. Can you actually see that? Can you see that at the moment? Yeah? Okay, so I'll press play. I can assure you that Kieran is absolutely trying to knock my teacher into the middle of next year. I've slowed it down so you can see that he's moving into the same space. It's just about 30 seconds, so you know. Each one of those, if landed, would actually be quite difficult to receive. But he's in there and he moves and redirects the energy. You'll notice there's no striking. He's not attempting to strike him. He totally could. But he's just harmonizing with the speed, the direction, and so on and so forth. So you get the idea of what's going on here, right? So obviously I couldn't possibly teach you that inside an hour or 44 years, but we could get the principles of movement. So this is what we're talking about, movement. You notice he's quite still comparatively. The other person's moving a lot comparatively as the energy is exchanged. So this is a conversation. What you're looking at is a conversation, but it's a physical conversation and a natural exchange of ideas that leads to a natural conclusion. You get the idea? So if there's no commitment, then the natural movement draws out of what I can only really describe as the void, and it happens. That's the best way that I can describe it. Kieran's had enough by this point, you can see, but I'll stop it. It was going to go on for a few more seconds, but I think you get the idea of what's going on there. Poor guy. We all had our turn. We all became special project number one from time to time. And then he'd move on to someone else for a month or so. It was their turn. Okay, so I can't teach you Aikido in a moment, right? The other movement, and what I actually particularly personally preferred, was the way of drawing a live blade. So I'm not bringing my blade in here. For starters, it might go through the computer, and last time I had to buy a new one. Because if it touches, it'll do the things designed to. But the thing is, it can't move on its own, right? If I put it on the floor, it won't move. It will only move if I move, and that I'm attached to something, if that makes any sense to you. So again, I'm going to share something here, just while I continue to talk. So I think you can see this one now. So that's the, might lose some sound. I'll turn the sound down. So every single moment to moment to moment, every movement you're seeing, every single part of all of what you're seeing is all being attended to. Absolutely every single moment is being attended to. It took me over 12 years to learn how to take the sword out of the scabbard. That's 12 years, right? To learn how to do that. There's no thought whatsoever. It's like Gurdjieff's sacred dances. That's another form of the same thing. There's absolutely no thought whatsoever. Everything's been committed to before the movement actually started, and everything that comes after that is the expression of the commitment that happened before that, which again is very, very difficult to put into words, especially if I say it took 12 years to learn how to observe every single split second to the exclusion of all other things. And we know that concentrating on one thing to the exclusion of all other things brings trance, right? But again, after a couple of hours of that, even that movement there, every single bit, the adjustment, all of those things, every single bit is being observed. Okay, so I'm not going to bore you with the video. I just thought I would show you something because I can't possibly teach you that. So what can I give you? And that's what I'm coming to, right? There are certain other parts of the art. So it's martial art, yeah. Art is the second word. Most people miss that. That can be grasped pretty quickly. I told you the meditation side of it. Over the world, there are different places. Burma tend to go in a half lotus or cross-legged position. Certain people go into the full lotus, like in India. In Japan, which is the system that I learned, it's to go into Seiza, which is that position, which I'll show you a picture of. But it doesn't actually matter. What we're talking about is a lack of movement. To absolutely lock down all movement whatsoever so that you cage the tiger. And then you learn how to release that. Again, probably for seconds at a time at best. So that's one of the things. Zazen is the process of doing that. And Kotatama is spirit breath. That's what it literally means. Spirit breath. Good called chanting. Gina was mentioning Huna chanting. It actually sounds like Japanese to me when I listen to it. Spirit breath or soul breath or power word or magic word or sacred sound. All translations of Kototama. So what am I talking about? So I want to share with you just a little bit of what I'm actually talking about so that you can actually hear for yourself Kototama. And as part of what I'm going to be doing, as a gift, or if you want to call it that, I'm going to give away some of the audio and the chanting sheet so that you can actually follow the chanting if you were interested in something like that. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play the opening sound. So the idea of this is to do your best when I play it. I do hope that I'm actually sharing sound as well. To follow the sound back to where it goes to, okay? Because that's where it came from in the first place. You understand? So the idea is to not think about it at all, but to follow it with your mind into where it came from in the first place. So if this doesn't make sound, then please let me know. Do I have to share sound or something? I think there's a tick box somewhere for share sound, isn't there? Let me just play it and see if you hear it. You hear that?
Mark, no sound. Can I help?
Yes, please.
Okay. You will see the Zoom control panel.
Quickly.
Okay, you see a circle with three dots in there.
In the
Do you
more.
see it? There's a circle with three dots inside. Yeah, there's more, correct. You click on that.
Share computer sound.
Okay. Have you clicked on it already?
So let's see if you hear it this time.
Yeah, you clicked on it, go to audio, make it stereo. Yo, good, good. Got it.
So mostly the clicks that was on about. So if you were following it with your mind, you got a sense of movement. So now what I'm going to play is a chant which when I was in Japan and I used to go to the founder's dojo and practice there. And every day I would go there 6 in the morning. And this lovely guy called Mr. Watanabe used to go to the local temple and chant Kotatama Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. That's the chant. And he put his entire success in international business down to chanting this chant every day. So I just want you to have an experience of it, what the sounds are like.
Om Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. どうもありがとうございます。Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge Kyo. Nam-myoho Renge
So this is from within the sequence that's about 25 minutes in. So by that point, we're all resonating quite a lot. You can hear the delay, the echo in the building just from the chanting itself. But by this point, we're no longer chanting the chant is chanting us, if that makes sense. So we are not chanting the chant anymore. The chant is chanting us. So we're going into ancient sound here. And by going in there, we end up plugged in. And it's the chanting isn't me anymore. It's coming through, which is very difficult to explain as a concept. But anyway, I will put the whole hour of the audio. I'll share that and the sheet so you can sing along, should you wish to do so. And this is a beautiful thing to do. You're tuning into something that goes back thousands of years. That particular one, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, is the infinite miraculous law of the lotus flower unfolding, which is a particularly beautiful one. But some of the sounds are even more primitive than that. Actually, the whole basic sound units themselves. So, for example, no matter where you are in the world, if you accidentally fell off a cliff, the last thing that you're probably going to say is ah, loads of ah, right? And that's the universal sound of upward direction. It's almost like that's the last thing you've got, right? You're going downwards and you're trying to go that way instead. So you chant ah, which is the sound of rising. So there are many of those sounds. So some of the chants are literally single ones. So I just had a couple up in front of me that I'm not going to play them. But he is universal spirit. Fu is polarization and the spirit of the wind. Mi is the physicalization and materialization from the void. Yo is the direction of spherical forces. E is life phenomena. Mu is birth, motherhood, nothingness. Na is the plant kingdom. It's funny because kids quite often go na, 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 na when they're taking the mickey out of each other. It's almost like they're calling each other plants as a kind of strange, kind of primitive chant. Ya is radiation, infinity in all directions. To is accomplishment and construction. Mo is expansion. Chi is life force. And Ro is large-scale harmony. So there are lots and lots of single sounds, and you just do one breath, one sound. So I'm going to put that into the chat, not into the chat, but I'll share that because I think that's a beautiful thing to share. And you can take all the time in the world to plug yourself in and have a go if you want to do that. Mystical power resides in sounds, right? All sounds, whether it's music, chanting. When I played with the Africans, they'd all been playing those songs for hundreds of years, hundreds, each family line, single instrument. When Jali was born, they made him his kora. And then when he was old enough, he was able to learn the kora. And then he learned all the songs that his family had played for 500 years. And then he could start to write his own. Baba played the balafon, same thing. Magat played percussion, same thing. I was the only person who wasn't a griot. But I happened to play West African style bass. I had no idea. I played after the beat, just after the beat, and that's where they like it. So that's why I was in the band. But it's ancient, right? We're still, when we played, we couldn't even speak. I couldn't speak Wolof or Mandinka or Swahili or any of their languages, and they didn't speak English. But when we played, we were listening to the sounds of many hundreds of years. The chants, you're going back thousands of years. And it's a precious thing because language is magic. Magic is language. The art of spelling, think about it. Because the structure of your language is the structure of your consciousness. The structure of your language is the structure of your experience. And when you change your language, you change your experience, and actually you change the shape of your thalamus, right? which is what you're using to create what you're calling reality. But what's reality? You know, so I feel like picking this pen up at this moment, because we could argue what the name is, right? But let's play a game. If you're going to play with me, which I really hope you are. Otherwise, I'm playing a game on my own, but I'm still going to do it. So this is a pen, right? It's a pen. And if you're playing the game, then you're observing the pen, right? So if you're playing the game, you're observing the pen. Therefore, you're not the pen. You can't be the pen because you're observing the pen. Okay? Thought. If you're observing the thought, then you're clearly not the thought. You're observing it. And these things come out of the void and drop back down into the void. But you can't be the thing that you're observing. Similarly with emotion, if you observe the emotion, well, then you can't be the emotion because you're observing it. Sure, you're having it, but the experience of it, if you're observing the experience, then you're not actually the experience. So when we were chanting and we're in full chant mode, if you like, and the chant is chanting us instead, then we're observing the chant. So we're kind of not the chant. And a lot of Eastern philosophy points to this, right? Similarly, if I'm observing the form, well, as strange as it is, I don't think I'm actually the form, because I'm observing it. I mean, it's handy and it's great, and I love having one. Don't get me wrong. I intend to look after it and have it for as long as possible. But no matter what you think you are, you're much more than that. And if you think that you're the form, then what when, you know, there's going to come a time when these molecules won't hang out together anymore. So if I'm the form and I identify with the form, then I may find it more difficult than if I understand that although I inhabit this suit, I'm not actually the suit that I inhabit. Yeah. Bruce Lipton talks about the mind as being non-local, you know, received into this. My experience is that I'm receiving myself into this form, which after all has changed over time, right? And it's changed in many ways. But I'm constantly changing. This form is constantly changing. Stuff is coming and going. There's hardly an atom that existed a year ago here, and yet I still call this me, right? So I want to continue to understand that that's truth, and I go and buy food and things like that, but I also know that I'm not the form. I'm not the sound. I'm not the thoughts. I'm not the emotions. 95% of it is completely undetectable. And everything points towards the 95%. So if I hold a form, then the idea of any form is to get free of form. So I learn a process of chanting. In a few minutes, I'll come back to, well, what when I let go of the form of the chanting? And if I learn the physical form by learning the techniques of Aikido, for example, and that's the form, things we do wherever I go in the world, I can go to the local dojo and practice because we all do the same thing. But true Aikido isn't the form. It's the spontaneous evolution and the experience of that in this present moment happening, if that makes sense. I really hope I'm making sense. If not, you're thinking, God, I thought he was actually like a sensible guy the rest of the weekend. He's completely unhinged. But if I put a mask on and I keep the mask on and I pretend that that's me and I play the game, then I'm not doing myself a service, right? You know, persona, by means of sound. And if you don't know, the persona is the mask they wore in the Greek theatres. That literally, it is called a persona, the mask that they had, which had a big funnel on the front, so that what? I could project myself by means of sound into the audience. And most people are wearing a mask and projecting some sense of believed self outwards, as if anyone cares. But actually, the best form of defense in some ways to have none of that, to just drop it and be free of the form. And if you learn the form, any form at all, sitting is just sitting. But actually, I need to keep what I'm experiencing and get up and walk around. You understand? The chanting is the chanting, but hang on. I talk. How is what I've been doing for the last, I don't know how long, how is it not chanting? How is this not kotatama? Of course it is. This is kotatama. You understand? I actually don't know how I speak. Do you? I have no idea. None. I mean, I can say I vibrate here and air comes past it, and somehow I imbibe that with meaning, and that's going into a little piece of paper here by my mouth that is moving forwards and backwards, and that's wirelessly jumping through the air, and God knows where else it goes, and then it turns up at your end, and a piece of paper there's moving, and you extract what you called me out of all the sound around you, and then decide that there's meaning in it. I have absolutely no idea how that's happening. But I understand that if your unconscious mind has organized everything so that it's easy to utilize, easy to remember, and easy to know the right thing to say, then maybe I could jump out of the form completely and find out for myself. Because when you know that you know that you know, it makes a difference. And one day you'll know that you know that you know anyway. So my idea is, if I don't learn a form, any form whatsoever, but I'm talking about pretty much Japanese form. And I mentioned before, I'm learning Japanese in university now as well. I'm learning how to read and write, completely different form altogether. It's blowing my mind, I've got to say. But eventually I'll be out of that form as well, and I'll just be fluent by the time I go back to Japan. And then there's the physical form. So the classic physical form for me is, and I'm going to jump into sharing again. I think I have to find something to share first. Just give me a second. You understand, I'm really, really hanging out at the molecule level at the moment. So do bear with me if I stare at a screen and try and work out my own reality. This is a picture that some of you may have seen before. Anyone seen that picture before? The Buddha holding two spheres. No, holding the peaches of heaven. That's what the idea of it is. They appear all over the East. Tell me if you can't see me. Can you see most of me at the moment? Can you still see my hands? So I'm now rotating the spheres above my hands. This is what that actually is. Iron sphere technique is a super ancient technique. And what's happening is it's forcing my arms into extension, because most people are contracting. Don't bother me, don't mind me. Contraction. Oh, I had a bad feeling. Contraction. You understand? Expansion. Extension. So this is actually forcing me to extend. So my teacher would have me doing this for hours sometimes. Kung Fu Panda stuff. But when we went to other countries, we get people to go and get a couple of rocks. So anyone can get a couple of decent stones. And even if you can't rotate them, you can hold them. Forces extension. By the way, you know what happens when you go back to your teacher and say that this is getting easy, don't you? It gives you a couple of cannonballs instead. So that's the nature of Kung Fu Panda nonsense, isn't it? These are very, very heavy. I don't want to drop these at all. So I'm paying a lot of attention. You also notice that it's quite a weight to get up and down. There. Anyway, enough of that. Form, free of form. Now I'm free of form. By the way, my arms feel like they're made of pure light at the moment. If I was doing the sword work at this point, the sword would move just absolutely incredibly. But it lasts a short while. Of course, the idea is that it lasts forever. So form, let me try one more form, because I'm actually going to look at a clock. Oh, I think that means that there's about 10 minutes, right? So I just want to show you one more picture, because I'll again, if someone is interested in having stuff from me as a result of this, then I will share some of my personal life with you. Quite happy to do that. So the shape that I choose to work with is the Japanese shape of Seiza. So this is, whoops, it's disappeared for me. Hopefully it's just on a screen. There it is. So here the knees are 2 centimeters apart, 2 fists apart. Feet are together. That forms a triangle. The hands are very, very gently placed on the thighs, very comfortable. The head is straight on, chin in, head back, straight, eyes cast down 1 meter in front. And that's the position. It's just, that's it. There's nothing else to it. There's nothing special. It's literally a position. That's all there is to it. People think that the way to get some sort of incredible connection to all that is that it's something special, but it's really not. This is a quote. I'm going to actually use the one thing I actually have with me from a Zen master, Master Hogan, one of the greatest Zen masters that ever existed. And he said, the discovery of here and now, or coming back to the here and now, is the most urgent task for everyone. Otherwise, we are ghosts, wandering around with our ideas, our dreams, our hungers, our thirst, just full of delusion to the end of our lives. What on earth are we doing throughout our lives? Are we just going from delusion to delusion, from war to war, from thirst to thirst, and desire to desire? Is that it? If so, we're nothing more than jumping monkeys and galloping horses. We really need to stop and cut ourselves off from that endless chain, that endless current. But how? By doing Zazen, seated meditation? By some sort of special kind of meditation? Not at all. Because as long as we look for the way, how can we? It's nothing but just a repetition of the past pattern, trying to get something. There's no special way at all. Only by doing now, just now. Now is the only thing to do. So throughout our practice or any other practice in the world, what are we actually doing? We should carefully investigate and clarify with ourselves, because we mostly nurture that reinforcing and enriching our own ego, pride, and self-satisfaction. But by your practice and knowledge, by the teaching of a specific way, we find out, after all, how difficult and rare it is to become simple and humble and emptying ourselves, to be just a beginner, just to do nothing new, fresh. And the Japanese have a saying, Hibi Shoshin, which just means every moment, beginner's mind, fresh mind, now. Everything that exists, that can possibly exist, exists right now. Every decision you'll ever make is made right now. Everything that you could ever feel in your body is happening right now. Everything is now. So my teacher's teacher used to say, learn and abandon. Learn and abandon. Abandon yourself to it. Learn what you learn, but abandon yourself. Take that knowledge and let yourself go moment to moment, moment to moment. And that essentially is what I've been doing for 44 years. So sometimes when you see me and you hear me talking about some crazy stories about martial arts or playing music or the other things that people who've heard me talk stories know that I talk about from time to time, of course they're a metaphor. It's a story. Metaphor what, though? But behind that is this process which I'm still engaging in at this moment of continually letting go into this moment. And all of the skills of hypnosis, particularly, and NLP and timeline therapy, are making it so that the loops away from this present moment are actually the very things that bring me back. Do I fall over? Of course, I'm a human being. But someone else earlier on today said something like to get back faster or faster. I think it was Arslan, but I'm trying to put my mind in a different place to get the information, and I'm just not going there at the moment. Right now it is. Anytime I'm not being now is the very pathway back to now. Those loops are getting smaller and smaller and smaller for me. And I know a number of other people for whom that's also true. I invite you to do whatever you're doing. Have the structure that you want to have. Learn the things, learn the processes, learn how to do it, but then also learn how to move into what it is that you do not know that you're learning how to do it in a new way when you let go of everything and allow it to just come out of your mouth anyway, because you've been talking for years and of course you can do it, right? And the more that I do that and the more that I learn to trust myself and listen after the words come out of my mouth, the more I learn how to just relax and just let go and be in this present moment and just allow myself to flow into whoever or whatever the experience is at any given moment and to just enjoy it in the present moment, because that's the one thing that I can actually have. And I don't want to give it up just to go inside the shed and look at versions of myself that I think used to exist. Because while I'm doing that, I'm missing this. And it's one trip. It's one trip. As far as I can tell, it's a beautiful ride, don't get me wrong, but there's not a person alive that was alive 200 years ago. And there's not a person alive that will be alive in 200 years. This is our time, right now, 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 now. I think that's the most urgent thing for everyone. So when you hear me laughing and joking and doing all the things that I do, understand that behind that, I'm aware of what I'm talking about and can somehow contain that awareness and still go and talk to someone who is completely unaware, family members and things like that. But to be able to be free, I think, is the most essential thing. And if you take all the skills that you've learned, and the very fact that you're in a conference means that you must know some skills. It would be kind of weird if you signed up to this and you actually meant to go to a yoga Zumba conference and then you've ended up here, in which case, congratulations, you've arrived anyway. But I think that you have skills, right? But if you're not applying them to yourself, you ain't going 100%. You should be able to not only put your foot on the pedal, you should be able to, although it's a metaphor because there is no foot and there is no pedal, right? But nevertheless, glue it to the floor and go full pelt and make fun of the spark rails while you're doing it and enjoy yourself and always be able to go, well, I'm not having that feeling. I'm just going to let go of it. It's happening anyway. And why would I censor any of it? In fact, the less I censor, the more aware I am of all the things that are emerging from me moment to moment. And the structure of hypnosis is inside everyone. It existed before we existed. Any of us, humans, the lot, throughout all time, and probably beyond that, and will exist forever. So my invitation to you is, yes, diligently learn your thing. Relentlessly learn the way that you do it. Please don't copy me. That would just be the last thing that I would ever want someone to do. Draw from yourself, your Cami, your spirit, your expression from the void, unfiltered, and allow it to come through you and abandon it as it's coming through you and track yourself back to where you're coming from in exactly the same way that when someone does a counting before we play music, in between the last count and the music emerging, the artists on stage, it's already happening for them. It just hadn't emerged at that moment. There's a moment in time. I track back people when they talk to where they're emerging from. And it makes a lot of sense to me to do that. Well, how am I effective? Because I allow it to happen. And that turns into seeing hundreds of thousands of people over 27 years and beyond and all the rest of it and having a lot of success in it. All the other things I've done, they're just things that I do. They're not me, you understand? They're not me. And the form is not me. The language is not me. The thoughts in my mind are not me. It's part of me, right? Part though. It's happening. I'm experiencing it. But just like I'm not the pen, then if I'm observing it, I'm not those things either. I'm much more than that, and so are you. Much more than that. So that's, and then once you've got it for the first time, for yourself, without necessarily any guidance towards it, although I could pretty much pin someone into it within 5 days if they really wanted it. But once someone's had an undeniable personal experience for themselves, and that's why I like Zen rather than Zen Buddhism, because Zen just says anyone can have it without any training and without any pathway and without anything, and know that they're having it. If they're really lucky, it'll stick. But if not, they'll probably a moment later notice there's dirty socks on the floor they still need to pick up, right? But then they know that it's possible because they've had the experience. Once you know that it's possible, no one can tell you it's not possible anymore. And that's why I'm running around teaching in prisons and schools and anywhere else where people will have me and attempting to express consciousness and awareness to anyone who will listen, because that's what's happening. That's what we all need to do. As a human species, we need to evolve awareness on a completely different level, and it is emerging. The question is, do you want to be part of it? Right? I think that's just about on an hour if I'm right. If I'm not, then I'll carry on. But I think that's an hour. So that was my attempt to solve the mysteries of the universe within 1 hour. The last thing I will say is when you know that you know that you know, my invitation to you is become a secret agent of change and go around randomly changing people's lives for the better because you can all the time. It's not something you do, it's something you are, and that's a difference. I think I've said something that I've never said before. So thank you for listening to me. It's been a real pleasure, and it's actually still quite a trip for me to be stood in this position telling you all about it. So thank you. Thank you for being here generally. Thanks for chatting silly things with me in the gaps in between the presenters, and just for being here. It means you're one of the special people. Thank you. Am I done?
Mark, I wanna say something about what you mentioned about like sometimes you feel that you're nothing, you're not the form, you're not your thoughts, you're not anything. So when we help people reach this mindset, all the fears of loss, all the anxiety, it will drop away automatically. It's just like it's gone. So this is very important.
That's all it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's just an illusion.
Yeah, it is.
I like the illusion, don't get me wrong. I'll have it however long I'm around for, but I know it's an illusion. So it's not actually sometimes for me. It's I'm alluding to the fact that it's all the time.
There's a saying for Rumi, you're not a drop in the ocean, you're the ocean in a drop. I love it. It says a lot. So
Yeah.
it's how you perceive yourself. That's it.
Lack of form. I'm not the form. So thank you. I don't know if anyone else has got any questions or whether Candice is going to come on with a big stick and chase me off the stage. It's been my job for the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. Let's see if there's any questions here in the. Not really. They're just thanking you. I learned actually reality of use, which makes us infinite. We are infinite. Dr. Kim Edmondson, beautiful. Thank you, Mark. All right. So does anybody have any questions for Mark before we take a 15-minute break? Oh, okay. Let's take a 15-minute break and then we're going to have Dr. Adriana James next. Thank you, Mark.
Mark, can I, while we're on a break, Mark's gone. That's okay.
I'm
Oh,
never.
there you are. Yeah.